Hi, I'm Deboki and this is Okie Dokie Boki, and today I am going to be doing the Booktube Booker book tag. This tag was originally created by the Poptimist. It's a way to basically get a sense of the favorites of 2018 for Booktube. So I was not specifically tagged to do this video, but I was really fortunate to have some of my videos kind of get shared through this tag. So some of you may have come to my channel through this tag, which I am very thankful for. So I kind of wanted to pay it forward and do this tag as well. But I think it's gonna be a little bit embarrassing. I was rewatching the Poptimist original tag video of this recently, and he talks about how a lot of people's responses are gonna tend towards very recently published books. So when people are answering questions like their favorite fiction book, favorite nonfiction books, they're probably gonna be very recent. And I think that makes total sense. The books that we talk about on Booktube tend to be very recently published books. Those are books that people are excited about. There's just a lot more momentum around them compared to books that have been around longer. So when I went through this list of questions initially, I was going to try to focus on books that had been published in 2018, and then I was like, I've read very few books that are published in 2018. There are also some genres that I definitely missed out on this year, so that's going to be really embarrassing. You guys are going to see a lot of holes in my my reading habits this year, but that's good. Sometimes you just don't read in certain genres, and maybe next year I'll read more of them, maybe next year I won't. We'll see. We'll see. I read a lot more nonfiction this year, so that's honestly the most competitive category, and yeah. So the first question is your favorite fiction book of the year, and for this we're going to go way back. This is going to be The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I'm going to be frank. Part of the reason why this is my favorite fiction book of the year is just because I'm really glad I finally read it. I went into The Count of Monte Cristo fully expecting to be disappointed. I know a lot of people love it, and I was just like, it's a bajillion pages long. There's no way it can be that good. And then it was actually that good. It was pretty amazing. I was surprised by how much I loved it. And I think part of the reason why I'm glad I read it is I also see so much more of its influence and so much of the pop culture that I've engaged with that are more recent. I think that's one of the cool things about classics is when you read them and you kind of are like, oh, this is where all of that stuff that I watch now, where those initial ideas are, kind of rooted. So I know that it's not the original revenge story, but it's such a seminal one. It was really great to read it and just be like, oh, this is fun. The Count is fucking dramatic. The next question, favorite nonfiction book. So this is the one question that I don't want to answer because I have too many answers for this. I have read a lot of really amazing nonfiction this year. I think I have at least 4 favorite nonfiction books this year, which is annoying because I guess I have to pick one. So you might see answers in other videos that contradict the one that I'm going to give right now. For the sake of this video and for the purposes of this video, I am going to pick Bad Blood by John Carreyrou just because it is the most recently published. Bad Blood is about Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes and this whole saga, and for me this really struck a chord as a scientist who kind of came of age scientifically, I guess, since that's what I consider grad school, during the sort of unfurling of the Theranos saga. So I really enjoyed Bad Blood just for the fact that it kind of coalesced everything into one easy to access book instead of the bajillion news articles I had been reading up until then. And Carreyrou really brings in a lot of details that I didn't know, including the fact that I went to high school with Elizabeth Holmes' brother. That was a surprise detail that I'm still fixated on. It's been really exciting to see more people find this book and just be like, this is bonkers. The next question is your favorite debut, and for this I'm going to go with a romance novel. This is The Duke I Tempted by Scarlett Peckham. This is a historical romance, kind of Regency era-ish, I think. And at its core is this Duke who has had a tremendous amount of tragedy in his life. He has good reason to be angsty. He is also a little bit kinky. He's got some submissive tendencies in him. He ends up, through the usual hijinks of a historical romance, married to a gardener, and she is this really awesome badass gardener who's just trying to maintain a garden. All she wants is money to be able to create this exotic flower nursery, which sounds awesome. Obviously the path to love is never completely smooth in these novels, and even though these two are completely enamored with each other, there are a lot of reasons why they're having a hard time explaining their feelings to each other, and it is very challenging for them. I think it's always exciting to find new romance authors, and I was really excited about this debut. I thought it was really well written. I really liked the characters at the center of it. I really liked kind of the pacing and the overall emotional core of the book. I read Peckham's second book, The Earl I Ruined, which just came out, and I really enjoyed that book as well. I found it a little bit more frustrating in some ways, and so there's some things that I'm kind of hoping she's like ironing out as she writes more books, but I think overall like she has this tendency towards like really good combinations of angst and smut, so I'm excited to see what else she writes. The next few questions are going to be embarrassing. This is bad. The next one is favorite poetry or short story collection. I did not read any this year, which like, look, it's not actually embarrassing to not read in a genre. Like, we can have like a whole Think PC video on this, but like whatever, you read in the genres you read. I'm not actually embarrassed to not have read any poetry or short stories this year. I did have Florida by Lauren Groff on hold, and I could have checked it out, but I just wasn't in like a headspace to read it at the time, and there's other short story collections I could have read. I just didn't want to. I don't know, poetry is a genre that I want to like get more into reading again at some point. It just wasn't a place I really wanted to be in this year, so we'll see. Maybe next year I'll read some more. Next up is favorite work in translation, which I also did not read any this year, which that one, oh, no, I'm wrong. I read The Count of Monte Cristo. That was in translation. I almost wish I didn't put it now for a favorite fictional book, but whatever, I already filmed that part, so whatever. I read a work in translation. It was The Count of Monte Cristo. It was amazing. I read 2 different translations. Both of them were amazing, and I'm already completely blanking on what they are. Okay, I looked it up because I think this is actually really important. There are whole like Reddit threads about the right translation to go with. The one that I read most of the book in was Robin Buss's translation. This is, I think, the most complete translation. So if you want the full Count of Monte Cristo experience, like that's probably the one to go with. I can't believe I forgot that The Count of Monte Cristo was a translation. I spent like a good day looking up what translations to read for it, so that's embarrassing. The next question is favorite comic / graphic novel. I did not read many this year. The only manga I read was Nijigahara Holograph, which I did not really like that much. I haven't reviewed it on my channel. I read it for the Book Riot Reading Challenge. It's one of those books that feels like it's trying to shock you more than it's trying to actually tell a story, and that's just not something I'm super into. I didn't really like it, so unfortunately I do not have an answer for this. The next question is favorite book covers. So for this I have 2 answers because they kind of satisfied 2 different impulses in me. One is the cover for Hazel Wood. So that was a book written by Melissa Albert, and it's this beautiful black and metallic cover, which like kryptonite for me. Like I love a good gold, like, and put it on black and you've got me. The other is the cover for Severance, which was written by Ling Ma, and this is a pink cover, and I am nothing if not completely prone to trends targeted towards millennials. I love a good pastel pink. So I have not read Severance yet, and it's like the first time I've like seen a book in a while where I've wanted to read it strictly based on the cover. Minimal and pink and black and gold, like these are 2 things that are kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but they both call to me, so both of those covers, it's hard for me to choose because it's like trying to pick 2 different sides of my personality. I just love both of those covers so much. Next question, favorite author. I think my favorite author for the year is Alyssa Cole. So Alyssa Cole is a romance writer, and I've mentioned her in one of my recent romance reading rundown videos. She is, I think, one of the most versatile romance authors, and I'm just gonna keep saying this because she writes in so many different genres of romance. My personal favorite of her series is the Loyal League, which is about espionage during the Civil War, and I just think it's amazing how she's been able to create this whole world out of the Civil War that is both like compelling on this like plot level, like there's all this intrigue, but then she's also able to weave romance in without like ever having it feel like a distraction from the war itself. Like she understands the role of romance in this like also super traumatic time. She also has this contemporary series which like I'm not as super into. It's the Reluctant Royal series. I think they're good. It's just not as much my personal kind of jam. But she also has a really cool dystopian series called Radio Silence, which I really loved. So she just like is working in all of these different genres, but also working in romance. And I just think she's really, really good. I think she's gonna come out with even more awesome stuff. I really hope that like long term she just becomes kind of a household name, because I think she's just one of the best romance writers out there. Next question is favorite booktube video. So for this, I'm gonna recommend Booktubers Don't Review Adult Books. This is from Chapter Stacks. And I think one of the weird things about like being in this corner of booktube is like this is the only corner I've known, right? Like I know that like YA booktube is like a huge thing, and I know that the biggest booktubers are like in YA booktube, but like that's just like not what I'm as interested in, so I just don't know many of the people there. So for me, when people talk about booktube being all about YA, it's kind of hard for me to understand, because most of the people that I watch are not, you know, younger people. They're people in a similar age range who are often reading, you know, if they are reading YA, they're also often reading a bunch of other books as well. And so I really like Chapter Stacks' video because she takes a really pragmatic approach to this question of just talking about like, well, cool, like if you're having a hard time finding booktubers who watch the books that you want to, like you actually want to hear about, like yeah, it's hard if you just type in booktube, you're gonna get those biggest, you know, YA booktubers, but you know, here's all these other things you can do instead to find the booktubers who are reviewing similar books. I think especially because she's been on booktube like for a lot longer, I think of her as like one of those like wiser people who has more of a sense of kind of like the lay of the land, and it's just like, yeah, you know, YA booktube is a thing, but like there are also a lot of people, you know, young and old on booktube who are reading a much wider array of books. And I don't say that at all to knock YA, I'm just talking about the fact that, you know, when you come to booktube, those are often the first people that you find just because of, you know, the algorithm. So the last question is your favorite new to you booktuber, and for this I'm gonna go with Emma Tobias, who I met at Booknet Fest, and she was like really awesome there. I met a lot of awesome people at Booknet Fest, so like if you can go next year or if you're thinking about going, you should definitely go. I really like Emma's channel because it feels very stream of conscious. It's not like a vlog channel, but it feels almost like you're watching a vlog, just because from video to video things are very different, and it almost just feels like she kind of sat down with the camera and was just like, cool, this is what we're doing now. So I think of her channel as like very warm and interesting, like kind of an interesting combination of that. So I highly recommend her, especially like, you know, I think a lot of us with booktube, it's like very easy to get sort of like into a routine. Like you see a lot of like, you know, the standard sort of like, this is my haul video, this is my wrap up. And I think like those videos are like a super core part of booktube, but sometimes it's nice to have a channel that also kind of breaks up that routine and does something a little bit different. And I really love the way she does it, because it's not like she's doing it to be different, it's just like this is the video that she wants to make and she's gonna make it. So I highly recommend her channel for something that's like a little bit differently paced. So yeah, thank you guys for watching my take on the booktuber book tag. Thank you guys for watching my booktube book tag video. I don't know why I had no problems with this in the beginning and now suddenly it's really hard. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, bye.